Hey guys, this is Allison from AllyKatkreations. How are you? Before I begin, yes, I have a big nose. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, a mic drop, something mind-blowing, the epiphany, the light bulb, connecting the dots, a new book to read, please consider supporting my work. It helps me get this content to you. It does. The Book of Sethantes, or Sethantes, however you want to pronounce it. I left off on chapter 5, and we're going to pick up on chapter 6. And it's 2:15 in the morning by me. I can't get to sleep. So why not record? Chapter 6, and God went to the provinces of the governors of heaven, dwelling on earth, whom he had appointed and set forth. And as he himself had been commissioned by Jehovih in Horde, so did he install the governors on their seats. And the governors were situated within Waga, Pan, at remote distances, but God sent messengers to them, notifying them of the time he would appear. And the Lord began appraised of God's journey, established a protectorate in the Lord's kingdom in the city of Oahspe on earth, and went and joined the ship of God and traveled with him throughout Waga, being present at the inauguration of the governors in these heavens. To each and all the governors God said, remember that which is given to my governors pertaineth to things in heaven, for the Lord's matter pertain to earthly things, and to angels that labor with the Corporeans. But ye are to attend to the Assyrians, receiving them in heaven, providing them with places to sojourn, and in their helplessness supply them with food and clothes, and the rudiments of learning. God said, remember ye also the time cometh when each of these governorships shall attain to an independent kingdom, and instead of being governors, ye shall be raised as subgods. After God established the governors, the Lord persuaded God to visit his place in Oahspe, and thence to go around about on earth and see the mortals with whom the Lord had to deal. And God consented, and the Lord sent messengers on before him, that the house of the Lord, which mortals had built, might be replenished and cleansed. And the protectorate notified the Ashars, and the Ashars impressed mortals to go and cleanse and purify the house of the Lord. And so mortals fell to work and cleansed the place and burned incense of sweet myrrh and heptan, not even knowing they were fulfilling the command of the Lord. When the ship of the hosts of God came to the city of Oahspe, I have an idea what that might be, but I'll keep my thoughts inside. Mortals saw it high up in the air, and they feared and ran hastily to consult the prophet of the Lord. And the prophet said, behold, God appeareth in a sea of fire in the firmament of heaven. And God caused the ship to be made unseen, that fear might subside on earth. And he descended with his hosts into the house of the Lord, and they went and touched the things mortals had built, that they might perceive corporally. And the Lord gave a banquet, and the angels of God tarried 4 days, exchanging fellowship with the Ashars who ministered to mortals. And the Ashars took the angels of God around about amongst mortals. Both wireless mortals were asleep and awake, showing them all things. And because of the presence of the host of God, mortals were aroused with new vigor to worship the Lord, rising early and going to the house of worship and continuing all day, and not one of them knew the cause thereof. On the evening of the fourth day, God commanded his hosts to prepare to renew the journey, and the ship was again illumined and set for its course. God said, O Jehovah, who createth all, look down and bless thy Lord. He hath from his high estate in Etheria descended to these poor mortals to lift them up. Already hath he toiled with them 100 years. 3 generations had risen up out of the earth, and they began to glorify thee in thy kingdom above the earth. Who but thee, O Jehovah, can honor thy Lord or know his sore trials? Sorry, guys, my eyes went blurry. Behold, man groweth up out of the earth, saying, there is no Lord, no God. But his feet and his hands are guided every hour of the day. Yeah, when he entereth the unseen worlds, they become seen, but he is helpless in a strange place. And thy Lord provideth him and teacheth him the kingdoms. Thy Lord goeth from place to place on the earth. He findeth a corner and saith, here will I build a city. He sendeth his angels forth, and they inspire man on the earth to come and build a city. Yet when the city is built, man saith, behold, there is no God and no Lord. Thy Lord bringeth the Corporeans together and guardeth them all day and night. But man turneth away in strife and destruction. Then thy Lord withdraweth his angels of the city because of its wickedness. And lo, the city falleth in ruins. But man knoweth not the cause. Yet thy Lord toileth on day and night, watching, guarding, and striving to lift man out of darkness. O Jehovah, Father, bless thy Lord and his hosts. Haste the time when men shall comprehend the foundations of thy kingdoms. The Lord said, O Jehovah, ever present, hear the words of thy God. He who comprehendeth the whole earth and the heaven of earth, knowing no day nor night, he dealeth with millions, his judgment is sufficient for all. Glorify him, thy Son of heaven and earth. He fashioneth the homes of thy lords and thy little ones in great wisdom. His love is the glory of all men. His strength fashioned after thy foundations. Give swiftness and rest and joy in thy quickening to him, thy God. The mortals of the city of Ulu had gathered together to worship, and they were singing and dancing to the Lord, and the angels joined in the singing also. And God went and sat on the altar and illuminated it, so the mortals could see him. And the chief prophet came near the place of the Lord's, and the Lord placed his hand on the forehead of the prophet, so he might speak in the name of God. The prophet said, behold me, I am the God of heaven and earth, and my words come out of the mouth of this my prophet. Keep holy the 4 days of the moon, for they are the Lord's days. Do no evil, but strive for wisdom, and to do good. And when ye are dead, behold, ye shall live, for I have places prepared for ye in my heaven. Rejoice and be merry, for the Lord liveth and reigneth. When the prophet ceased, God rose up from the altar, and his traveling hosts also, and saluting the Lord in the name of Jehovah, disappeared in heaven above. Well, so Ulu might be Uluru, possibly. Chapter 7. As mortals sail corporeal ships across the corporeal ocean, so sailed the ship of God in the atmospherian ocean. As a man having 5 sons sendeth 4 away, to far off countries, and keepeth one at home. So did God with the 5 lords bequeatheth him by the great Jehovah. And now had God departed from the foundation of Hord in a ship in heaven to visit his 4 far off sons, the lords of the 4 great divisions of the earth, whom had to do with both mortals and the spirits of the dead for the glory of Jehovah. First to Jud, lord of Jud, he headed his ships of running close to the earth, bounding forth and sapping up fuel from the tall forest to feel the phosphorescent flame, running easy till the wind coast of the west of Waga was reached. Here halted his ships, first God of the first lords of earth, till his navigators told the distance of the wide sea before, then gathering full fuel and substance for the rich growing lands, he stowed the ship to the full and his traveling hosts. Ooh. And God went in, commanding, go forth, forth into the sea of heaven, and on plunged the ship of God in the winds of the blue firmament, high soaring above the black clouds sprung from the corporeal ocean, and the music of his thousands ensuers leaped forth in time and tune to the waves, plenteous and most defiant. Jehovah looked down from the highest of all the heavens, his everlasting throne of thrones, saying, onward, onward, tame the elements, O God, O man. The earth is thine, the air above is thine. Stretch forth thine arm and tame the elements I have made. Onward sped the ship of God by the force of wills matured, and from its hollow light displaying its purpose before other traveling gods and men, in other ships cruising on adventurous paths in Jehovah's wide oceans of splendor. Merrily sang the crew and danced and sighted the wide expanse, premising of the scattering ships coursing hither and yon in strange colors and marvelous swiftness. On one side, the rising moon, the setting sun; on the other, beneath the black clouds in great corporeal ocean, and yet high above twinkled the stars and the planets of the great serpent on his long journey. God came forth and surveyed the scene, and the power of Jehovah moved upon him. Then gathered around him his 7,000 loves and traveling companions. God said, all thy places are new, great Jehovah. For thousands of years have I gazed on thy matchless splendors, seen and unseen. But thy glory groweth rich day by day. When thy voice came to me more than 100 years ago, saying, go, my son, I have a new garden planted. Take some workmen and till the soil. I foresaw the long labor of the generations that would spring up out of the earth. I feared and trembled. I said, how shall it be, O Jehovah? Shall the new earth be peopled over and mortals run their course as on other worlds? First, in wholesome love and worship and due reverence to the gods, and then for ages and ages bury themselves in bloody wars. Oh, lead me forth, Father, Jehovah. I will take thy garden for a season and fence around the lords and wise kingdoms, and with thy potent spirit hedge mortals on every side, that the earth shall bloom as a paradise for angels and men. And thy sons and daughters came with me and engraft thy immortal kingdom. How is it now? How compares my labor with that of other gods on other worlds? O ye archangels, gods and goddesses, look down on the great earth. Jehovah had filled my arms with a great load. I trembled on the immortal scales, and God transfixed looked up into the swift passing sky, for his voice reached to the throne of Etherean worlds, whereon the Osirian regents reigned in all power. And down from the mist the stars shot a single ray of light, engrossed with the adorable words, Jehovah's Son, all hail. Hail, God of earth. Jehovah's Son, glory, glory to great Jehovah for all that thou hast done. Then upward flured the shining light till it faded mist. The far off stars anew the trumpeters and singers sent forth a strain of sweet music, spirited and sounding full of soul. And as the music glided forth across the waters, lo, other music, strange and welcome, come from the west lands to the borders of the ocean. The ship was across the sea, and the hosts of the Lord had come to meet the God of earth and heaven. And now, saluting loud and long, the two ships drew to close anchorage. Presently the messengers interchanged, and in Jehovah's name greeted God and his hosts, who were old-time friends to the Lord and his. God said, by the will of, O Jehovah, let us take course for the Lord's kingdom and place of labor. And presently the two ships set forth close to the earth, conjoined in the music of anthems of all times. Far up into the heart of the country, where fertile lands and mountains and waters were close companioned to the Asun race. The ships led on till one pillar of fire standing on a mountainside proclaimed the place of the Lord, and they halted and made fast the vessels unseen by mortals. Chapter 8. My co-host did get to move so I can put my feet back up. These chieftains had been long friends on other worlds and pledged to join in an adventure on some new corporeal world to raise up to Jehovah sons and daughters. Now was it being fulfilled in the Lord and God, remotely situated, and the time of this visit much looked forward to. And so God and the Lord came forth, saying in Jehovah's name, met at last. And they embraced and reassured each other that it was really true, which they had talked of thousands years before. And then came forward all the hosts of God and the hosts of the Lord, knowing one another and saluting and embracing also. Thereupon they proceeded to the house of the Lord, which mortals had been inspired to build of wood and clay. And when they were within, they joined in prayer and thanks to Jehovah, and they sang and danced and rejoiced to their soul's content. At sunrise the next morning, the mortal priests and priestess, led by a prophet, went into the house of the Lord to pray and sing and dance as they had been taught by inspiration of the Lord, but many people lingered without saying to one another, I fear a top. For last night I saw lights in the house of the Lord, and I heard like singing and dancing before the altar of God. Nevertheless, their companions persuaded them, and they went in and sang and danced also. After a time of rejoicing of quiet, the Lord said, behold, O God, the follies of judgment and the vain calculations of even lords and gods. We look upon mature men saying, alas, he is stubborn in his own way. We cannot convert him. Then we desire the immature, saying him, will I rise up in my own name and shall not depart from the judgment, but we tire of his immaturity and slow growth. Interesting. God said, hereon hangeth the highest testimony of the person of great Jehovah. The nearest blank of all the living created he man, purposely unlike all the rest and devoid of sense. Whereas, according to the order of the other animal world, a newborn babe should be already wise. Jehovah said, all the living have I provided with certain paths to travel in, but man alone I created new out of all things, dead and dissolved, and he shall grow forever. To the beast I gave an already created sense, self. To man I allotted angels, and even these have I provided with others above them, and yet others above them forever and ever. Hence the first of man, the newborn babe, I created a blank in sense and judgment, that he may be a witness that even he himself was fashioned and created anew by my hands. Neither created I him imperfectly, that he should re-enter a womb and be born over again. That which I do is well done, said Jehovah. The Lord said, Thou art wise, O God. The opposites prove Jehovah. Water runneth downhill, but man walketh up the hillside. The tree groweth up out of the ground whilst it liveth, but after death it falleth. Man standeth on the earth, but the earth resteth on that which is lighter than the earth. Jehovah saith, The life of the tree is of me, the unseen that holdeth the corporeal earth is of me. And yet, O God, who can obtain to know Jehovah? The mortal saith, When I am dead and risen in heaven, I shall see the great Spirit. But he falleth, being still helpless, yea, as helpless in his place as he was helpless on the earth. Then he saith, When I am strong and wise, like lords and gods, and can traverse the wide firmament, then I will see Jehovah. But when he riseth and can shape his vessel through the whirlwinds of the vortices of heaven, and he is called Lord or God. Lo, he findeth the arks and the ether standing before him still. More and more he is appalled of thought of the great I am, who liveth still beyond. He hurrieth down to the corporeal earth to teach mortals and spirits of Jehovah, and his endless worlds and exalted heavens. But lo, the darkness of men, they say, I see him not, I hear him not, I believe not in him. He is but as the wind going without sense, as the water goeth down the hill, so he is. He is dead, he is nothing. And the Lord inventeth ways and means, yea, he teacheth men to pray and sing to Jehovah, that the sounds may lead his soul upward. The Lord telleth him to wear clothes and hide his nakedness from the Lord. And the Lord sendeth angels to award him for his good deeds. And the angels of the Lord lay plots and stratagems in man's pathway to stir him up. Yea, Jehovah gave man sleep, so that his corporeal bound spirit might see and hear heavenly things. But man loadeth his stomach and debaucheth on intoxicating smoke and drink, till his soul is buried in darkness. And the Lord crieth out in despair, How weak am I, O Jehovah, before thee? I took upon me to be Lord over men on the earth, to learn my lesson in the government of the world. But, O Jehovah, I know I fail in thy sight. What will thy God say when he beholdeth my little good? What pity have the archangels for thy struggling Lord of earth? God perceived the sorrow of his friends, and he said, O Jehovah, who art almighty? No keener hast thou made our sense of our own weakness than those who look upon us. Thy Lord is my God in the glories he hath wrought out of such crude substance, and I sing to his praise and love. Lo, I have looked upon the naked man and woman of this great land, crawling on hands and feet, with no thought but to eat, and I have seen them rise up by thy Lord and his ashars, to walk upright and use words of speech, and to wear clothes and skins to hide their nakedness. Yea, O Father, I have cried out with great joy, and I called aloud unto thee, O Jehovah, saying, Who knoweth the labor of the Lord? Will man ever forget to sing praises to the Lord God? But Jehovah saith, I will keep some of the tribes of men in darkness till the last days, for man is his conceit shall be confounded, for he shall perceive that the tribes of darkness cannot put away their own darkness. Yet man shall bow down to the reverence of my lords in the early days of the earth. Thus conversed God and his Lord, as they went forth to see the work of thy Lord, and to find the mortals that have given up the places of a Sioux and come to live in villages and cities around about over the continent of Judd. They traveled for many days and nights. And when God had seen all the work of the Lord, he said, Behold, it is good, thy toil and seclusion away from the lords of the upper heavens are severe, but thou art fashioning the love of millions. Who shall bless thee? Now, while God sojourned here, his hosts regaled themselves with the company of the Ashars and Asifs in the kingdom of the Lord, and the great love and rejoicing amongst them. Chapter 9. When God's visit was ended and the host notified, the Lord gave a banquet that lasted 2 days and nights, during which the angels sang and danced and trumpeted before God. After that, God and his hosts embarked on the ship in the readiness to proceed on the journey. And the Lord went up to the ship to take leave, and his hosts went with him. God said, What Dan approacheth, we shall meet again. My Jehovah, prosper thy harvest till then. The Lord said, This is another 100 years. O God, I almost live in a wilderness. I have not 10 millions of souls, mortals and spirits. God said, Thy kingdom shall be mighty when I come again. May it be glorified, Jehovah. They embraced and separated. Each gave the sign of Jehovah's name. Upward raised the ship of God with banners outstretched and new ornament by the Lord's angels. And now, taking course still west, sped above the mountain tops like a meteor hurled from the heaven. Meanwhile, the trumpeters gave forth the gladly solemn sound of the march of God. But ere the ship had made half its journey, on an approaching light came forth from the far west, radiant and laden with hosts from the lords of Dis, and the Lord of the earth also. When the ships drew near and halted, God called with a loud voice, saying in Jehovah's name, All hail, I know my Lord cometh. And thereupon the Lord answered, Hail to thee, O God, son of Jehovah. When they turned to the Lord's ship and lashed the twain together, even as they sped on. Now, after they had all exchanged welcome and good wishes, the Lord said, Ere we go to my central throne, let us survey the continent over which thy servant is Lord, and land and water. And God answered, Thy will be done, O Lord. And so they journeyed for many days, often descending to the earth in places where the Lord's angels had begun colonies with mortals, impressing men with words of speech and to live in villages. And God said that all he saw was good and well done. So they came to the throne of Lord and halted and sojourned for 60 days. And God and his hosts and the Lord and his Ashars and Asifs were together in the general reunion, praying and singing and dancing and reasoning on the endless works of Jehovah. But one book could not contain all that was said and done, and the excursion made, and the visits over the plains and mountains were in thousands of years. Hence men should live and build cities and go to war and destroy them. And the mathematicians foretold the great cities and nations that would rise up, how this one and that one would move to battle, how their great cities would fall in ruins and be covered up by falling nebulae, and by the nudging mountains washing down upon them, so that even their remembrance should be lost. And yet further on, the mathematicians foretold the coming of Cosmon, when the ruined cities would be disappeared and their histories deciphered by the Suis of man in great Jehovah's hand. And now when all things were estimated, the prophets and mathematicians went before God according to the commandments of the Lord, and they spake before God, son of Jehovah, telling all these wonders. When they had finished, God said, What is our service on earth, O Lord? A few centuries at most, and we will have risen up from the earth, taking our hosts with us to dwell in higher realms. But there shall be other gods and lords after us, to deal with mortals and spirits newly born. After a while, there shall be great warriors and great cities and nations, and they shall have gods and lords of their times, who will dwell many weary year, century in darkness with men. After that again, even the gods and lords will be forgotten, and man will turn against great Jehovah, putting to death his adherents, preferring idols of stone and metal and spirits born of women. The Lord said, and yet further on a brighter light adorn the way. Great Jehovah's hand sendeth the traveling worlds into the light of Cosmon, and the new prophets arise, gathering up the histories lost and glorious plan of the great spirit over all. Yet even my labor and my ships will be seen by mortals of that day. Thus the discourse, reading the past and the future and weighing the present, while angels less informed gather around to learn how worlds are peopled and nations and cities destroyed, the far off and the near at hand being as nothing in Jehovah's vast universe. But the time came for God's departure, and he and his traveling host embarked. And the Lord and his angels drew around to receive God's prayer, he left. And so after they had embraced and parted, God said, though I go away, my love abideth with you all. And now, O Jehovah, bless these my fellow laborers, and make them strong to endure their great trials. Thine is the power and glory, O Father, amen. The ship rose up, and the trumpeters gave forth. Glory to thee, O Jehovah, forever and forever. Forever. Chapter 10. Jehovah spake to God, saying, steer thy ship to the south land, my son, and visit thy Lord, who is God of Bohu. And God went as commanded to the south, running close to the earth, over deserts and mountains. But when they were a short way on the journey, they were met by the Lord, who had been appraised of God's coming. And the ship of the Lord came also, and made fast to the vessel of God. And all the angels saluted and intermingled, having known one another hundreds of years, and some for more than 1,000 years. The Lord said, on our journey, let us run through the valleys and the banks of rivers, for it is here that both Asu and men dwell. And so they journeyed, surveying the earth as they sailed above. The country was mostly barren, not supporting man or beast. But by the riversides man dwelt, burrowing in the ground to avoid the heat of the day and the cold by night. And they came to places where the angels of the Lord were dwelling with mortals, having inspired them to make villages and to hide their nakedness. The Lord said, behold, O God, only the unseen is potent over man. Could the beasts or the stones or the forest tell man to hide his nakedness? He would not, neither will he heed his brother's voice. Without experience, man cannot be advised profitably to himself, for such hath Jehovah made him. Because man cannot discern angel presence, the angels alone can teach man and inspire him to new life. For they talk to him in his sleep and show him what is for his own good. And when he waketh in the morning, he suppose if it was himself talking, and he is ambitious to obey himself. Patient and of long endurance are the angels of the Lord. God said, will man ever know he hath been raised up? Will he be believing? Or will he too need to do some new world and raise up the first fruits thereof and toil his hundreds of years with naked mortals? O Jehovah, how wise thou sharpen the labors of the believing and unbelieving. Lo, man and cometh forth out of earth, boasting of his belief, saying, except I see. Sorry, guys. She tried to jump up and got stuck. Her paw got stuck. The claws. Yeah. She's okay. She does not really let me clip him. She puts up a fight, and she's too old to have a fight with. So I do apologize about that. That's what happens when you're a fur mommy. So I'm going to read this one little section over again. I don't remember where I left off, but I know where I was. But by the river's sides, man dwelt, burrowing in ground to avoid the heat by day and the cold by night. And they came to places where the angels and the Lord were dwelling with mortals, having inspired them to make villages and to hide their nakedness. The Lord said, "Oh, behold God, all the unseen, potent over man. Could the beasts of the stones of the forest tell man to hide his nakedness? He would not, neither will he heed his brother's voice. Without experience, man cannot be advised profitably to himself, for such hath Jehovah made him, because man cannot discern angel presence. The angels alone can teach man and inspire him to new life, for they talk to him in his sleep and show him what is for his own good. And when he wake up in the morning, he supposeth it was himself talking. He is ambitious to obey himself. Patient of long endurance are the angels of the Lord. God said, will man ever know he hath been raised up? Will he be believing? Or will he too need to do some new world and raise up the first fruits thereof and toil his hundreds of years with naked mortals? O Jehovah, how wise hast thou sharpened the labors of believing and unbelieving. Lo, man cometh forth out of the earth, boasting his unbelief, saying, except I see with my own eyes and feel with my own hands, I will not believe. But thou, O Jehovah, hast fitted a labor for his eyes, and for his hands to his heart's content. And yet another man cometh forth out of the earth, being delivering, and quickly his mounteth to the thrones of thy exalted heavens. Great is the work of thy Lord, O Father. The Lord said, who knoweth thy wisdom, O Jehovah? Who cannot perceive thee in the foundations of the everlasting worlds? Thou hast provided nurses for the new earth, and out of this thy footstool wilt thou bring forth many who will in the far future time be laboring as thy Lord and his angels labor here. Of what expanse is thy wisdom, O Jehovah? Thus they conversed and journeyed forth till they reached the throne in place of the Lord, and here they made fast their ships, and they descended down to the city of Uggu in upper middle of the continent of Bohu. And the Lord now sent messengers to all the Ashars in his dominion, appointing 10 days of rest and time for feasting and music and dancing and worshiping Jehovah. And so it came to pass that the angels of the Lord and of God held a reunion, being the first one for over 100 years. And then God went around about over all the continent of Bohu, inspecting the work the Lord had done, and he pronounced it good before Jehovah. When God had rested the full time, he and his hosts entered the ship of God, and taking leave over the Lord and his hosts, departed on the journey, saluting the Lord with 1,000 trumpeters in the name of Jehovah. And I'm going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry for the kitty cat fun. Dropping things. Yeah. She's old. She's 17. She's entitled. But yeah, her claws get stuck in the chair because she likes to rip the chair up. Fun times. I hope each and every one of you have an amazing day. Please consider supporting my work. Don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I hope wherever you are during this crazy time, you're taking care of yourself. Sending each and every one of you love and light. I hope to see you on the next one. Bye, guys.